To complete today's spooky project, you need a spiderweb embossing folder, a gray or black ink pad, some lace trim, some fun tinsel trim, cardstock in the colors of your choice, a spider stamp, a 1-inch circle punch, a white gel pen, a greeting stamp, and a brayer. For today's project, we're going to use a fun crayon rubbing technique with an embossing folder. Each embossing folder, like this spooky spiderweb one I'm using today, has both a recessed side and a raised side, and we're going to use the raised side for today's technique. What's great about today's technique is it takes a product that you already have, an embossing folder, and a crayon, and a piece of paper, and gives you a whole new way to use them. What you want to do is place a piece of light colored cardstock, I'm using vanilla cardstock, onto the raised side of your embossing folder and unwrap a white crayon. Then you're going to take the side of the crayon, just like in traditional crayon rubbing techniques. People use this to rub gravestones or other embossed surfaces. And then they get a little relief. Normally this technique is done with a dark colored crayon or charcoal on a light cardstock, but I'm actually going to do a resist because that's what we use crayons for in stamping. So I'm taking a white crayon and just rubbing it really firmly over the raised side of my embossing folder, and press really hard because the more detail you get with the side of the crayon, the better your resist is going to pop out. And we're going to use this for a background, so you do want some of the detail to show up. Next, we're just going to use the brayer and an ink pad, and we're going to pop out the resist of that design. So just use your brayer, and here I'm using a going gray ink pad, and just get it good and inky, and then start brayering over your cardstock. And right away you can see the design of the spider web pop out for this super creepy background. So what you want to do is just keep using your brayer until your ink has totally saturated the light parts of the cardstock for maximum effect. And I've used this with several different embossing folders, and they're all beautiful and unique. So try it with whatever embossing folder you have. Next, you want to take and burnish the design with a soft cloth. And look how much detail comes out of the crayon portion. You're just rubbing the ink off of the crayon, which does create a true resist, and you get even more detail on your spider web. Next, I'm going to take my spider web panel, and I'm just going to use my corner chomper to round each corner of this. I'm using the 1/2 inch side of my corner rounder, which that just gives you a slightly larger round edge. And since this spider web is sort of organic, I think that's a nice shape. Now I have a little spider image from Dark and Dreary that I'm going to color in red because there's nothing more terrifying than a red spider. And I'm going to coordinate that with my card base. And I pre-stamped my little spider because I'm using Copic markers, and the Memento ink that you use with Copic markers takes just a minute to dry. So he's very easy to color, and I'm just going to shade him a little bit. Every scary spider casts a shadow. So I'm just going to put a little shadow underneath him with my C1 Copic gray marker. He is such a scary spider. I don't know who you'd really send a scary spider card to. Maybe somebody you didn't like. But if you have such an occasion, this is a perfect scary card. It will give you arachnophobia just looking at it. Next, I'm going to punch out my little spider. I don't feel like cutting out all his teeny scary legs, so I'm just going to take the easy way out and punch him out on a little 1-inch circle. To suspend him, I have this fun tinsel trim that if he were, a real party spider, he would have this tinsel trim for his web. And what I'm going to do is I've stuck a little piece of foam tape to the back of the spider, and I'm going to attach the trim directly to the adhesive on the foam. And then I think I'm going to have my spider web this way. And I'm going to stick him right in the middle of the web. And then this trim actually has wire in it, so I can just fold it back over the back of the card and it's ready to put on my card front. Now I'm going to prepare a greeting for this card, and this one says Goblin Greetings. I'm sure all goblins have pet spiders. I'm just going to ink it up in black and stamp it in the middle of a piece of red cardstock. To frame it, I'll be using this tag punch, which is the perfect size for this little greeting. And you want to leave yourself enough room on the piece of cardstock that you're punching to be able to hold the edge of it as you insert it into the punch. Otherwise, it can be a little bit of a challenge if you try to cut the cardstock exactly the same size. I'm going to use my white gel pen to add some spooky highlights to the Goblin Greetings. And the way I do this is I always add them on the same side of the letter. So in this case, I'm just adding them to the inside on the same part of each one of my letters. And it just gives it a little bit of light. And in this case, terror. And this one's a nice bold font, so it takes this outlining very well. So when I'm finished, that's what my highlighted Goblin Greetings looks like. To attach the greeting to the card, I'll be using a piece of this raven lace trim. And with all my trims, pretty much the easiest way to attach them is with these mini glue dots. And I just stick one glue dot on the end of the trim, adhere it around the back of the card, and then sort of make sure it's straight, although I don't stress about that too much. And then put another glue dot on the other side. And this trim is a little bit stretchy, so you can pull it pretty tight on the tightly, I suppose is the grammatical way to say that, on the front of the card so that it lays down fairly flat. And then I'm ready to attach my greeting on top of it. To attach this, again, I'm just going to use foam tape. And this will stick my greeting down, and it will also give a little more security to the raven trim on the front of the card. So it's doing double duty, as good foam tape does. And I'll just center it over the trim. And I think my eyes are crooked. I can never really get anything straight on a card, but that's what that looks like. And then we're ready to put it on a card base. I've chosen red. I like to have a little twist on traditional colors when I'm doing holiday projects. And so instead of the normal orange and black, I chose red and black because I think it's fun and it makes my spider look even scarier. So now I have my finished crayon rubbing embossed background and a very, very spooky Halloween card. Now this spooky embossing folder is perfect for this technique because of the web, but you can also get an extremely elegant look with the crayon rubbing embossing folder technique. I used the vintage wallpaper embossing folder on this card and some fabric and seam binding and a little glittery brad and a greeting, and the background is still the focal point of the card and has a very different, very elegant, and sort of distressed look.